Welcome to Strength Chat Podcast, presented by Kabuki Strength. Introducing your hosts, Chris Duffin, the mad scientist of strength, Rudy Cadlow, mature athlete and coach, and the wizard of training himself, Brandon Sen.
Welcome to Strength Chat. Here, your host, the mad scientist of Chris Duffin. To my far right, we've got Dr. Rudolph, our mature athlete and coach. And in between us, we've got the man with no title yet, just Kabuki Strength's Brady Cable. So today, very excited to have on Dr. Justin Dean. So Justin is a practicing doctor of chiropractic, but very involved on an educational standpoint within the industry. I've interacted with Justin a number of times because of the amount of continuing education he's been involved with. He's helped teach a number of seminars I've been involved with. He teaches the clinical audit process that's for practitioners. He is the executive director for Rehab to Performance. A lot of people may have seen in posts or emails to me, R2P is one of the places I refer people to if they're looking for a really good therapist, trainer, things that have the similar education to the methodology that we promote and use here at Kabuki Strength. So we're really excited that Justin's picking up that role, and his website is back to running. I don't think he's done a whole lot to it with that lately, but Justin is here to talk to us about all things related to the nervous system today, I believe. Maybe not all things, but he's got some special things to talk about. Like I said, he's been doing a lot of research, and he's really well known for that. That's why he teaches the clinical audit process. So welcome to the show, Justin.
Thanks for having me on here, Chris. And everybody else in the team, of course. No title, man.
No title yet.
Of course.
So Justin, Rudy here, or Dr. Rudolph, however you want to do it. We're obviously thrilled to have you here, and as you know, we've worked with your team and with your partner, Dr. Snell, for a number of years. But tell us, you're kind of new on the scene, 28 years old.
Yep.
Been skyrocketing up. Give us a little bit of background. Where you're from originally, your educational path, and kind of your motivation, why you chose this field, and a little bit of background.
Let's see, a little bit of background. I am from Eastern Oregon. I'm an Eastern Oregon boy. What that means is I've literally been on a tractor when the country song comes on that she thinks my tractor's sexy. I've literally been in the tractor driving.
So how far? Ontario, Oregon, or
that's a little far east. I grew up in Hermiston,
Yeah,
and
sure.
I went to college in La Grande.
Okay, great.
So all within a couple-hour period. Let's see, and then I ran track and cross country at Eastern Oregon University, and there we had a chiropractor, Dr. Casey McCowan, that worked with our team, and I really liked how he used rehab and chiropractic and manual therapy, everything together, and I really liked how his treatment paradigm worked with the team, and I just was really interested in it, so I started taking my prereqs, and eventually I went to chiropractic school. But it became very apparent in chiropractic school that we weren't learning everything that I thought we would. Now, don't get me wrong, Western states where I went to school is very, very good at evidence-based and primary care, and chiropractic in general. But as far as the newer material that I was learning, at the time I was learning a lot of Gray Cook, Craig Levinson. I was reading a lot of books because I was really interested in the running population specifically. And I was starting to get frustrated, so I said, screw it. I hit the road, and from 2012 until I graduated, so basically fifth quarter on, I took 5 or 6 seminars every single quarter, and a quarter is 10 weeks, so I was everywhere.
Basically every other week.
Yeah, sometimes it was like 7 weekends in a row. Kind of sometimes, and then I get burnt out for like 2 weeks, and then somehow get more energy.
Yep.
During that time, that's how I got involved with Dr. Craig Levinson and started the R2P club at Western States, and with the help of Ben Ramos and a few others, we grew it to what it is now, which is I think you guys have all come and seen the club or talked.
Yeah,
about.
Actually, I think I've spoken there a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
One of those with you, and it's
Right.
always been always been a very good venue. A lot of really open minds and great place for some sharing of knowledge and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
So we have a lot of athletes listening in today. We've obviously a lot of strength athletes, but you're in the running sports in college.
I'm not believing that. You know, I heard he's a pretty good runner, but I've also seen him like deadlift some serious weights and like other
no,
stuff
I'm not
like
commenting
that.
that he wasn't strong. I'm just saying.
it just doesn't fit the paradigm. Like we're talking paradigms, right? Like.
I'm a little bit of an outlier in the running world. I raced college at nearly 170 pounds.
But were you? I was going to ask, were you a sprinter or middle distance runner? What would you do?
Fair enough. Funny enough is that my best event was actually the half marathon. So I ran
at 170 pounds.
At 170 pounds, and I ran equivalent to basically right at 520 miles for 13 miles, which was pretty decent at the time. So that's for a big boy at 170 pounds, which I'm like 190 now. But yeah, it definitely looks funny when you're running next to guys that are 130 pounds. My nickname in college was the caveman, or the actually there's a really funny story in high school. There's a guy from another team that we had a little sprint battle, and he beat me at the end, and I led the entire race, and he beat me. And basically they called me the ogre from Sunfair, and then we ended up being teammates in college. So I've always been the ogre from Sunfair.
Okay, that's good.
Nice. Yeah, that's
we'll call you Dr. Ogre now.
Yeah, sure.
I did cross country when I was in high school, about the same weight that you were in college.
What?
Yeah, but I wasn't any good. I'll put it that. Like,
who are you running from?
I was getting in shape for wrestling, yeah, but much to the football team's disappointment. But yeah, I remember how much bigger I was than everybody else then, and like it's like, because for us, you know, here in the strength world, it's like 180 pounds. That's not very big, and but you know, you shift your perspective and you're dealing with like running a half marathon and being pretty damn good at that weight is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it comes around, and then you still have some strength at that weight because I think with Jordan out here, I deadlift 365 without training, so still got some strength under my belt.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you're you mentioned earlier you're still single and eligible out there. The most eligible bachelor in Portland. But you mentioned that you may have an opportunity abroad here shortly. Is that something you can talk about now, or?
I can talk about it, but it's not confirmed. I may be going to China to work with some of their sprinters for the next year with Altus, but it's not confirmed yet. The Chinese are still approving my CV, so I'm waiting for the text or call to get that process started, but I don't know for sure yet.
So that would be an opportunity of a lifetime, really, to get out and.
Yeah. So it'd be really fun because track and field's kind of my passion. I do work a lot with the strength athletes as well, but track is where specifically runners is where I want to focus my clinical.
Yeah, and you know, speaking of runners, though, some of our viewers are definitely very strength athletes based, and like, why would I want to listen to this running doctor? But we deal with a lot of the same issues. Like you wrote an article for our website around dealing with the foot, and it's the exact same. Anybody that's been to our KMS seminars knows that we actually have the exact same approach for how we do our rooting patterns and how we correct like knee issues, hip issues, and things with. You know, for us, it's like we start with the core, and then the next place we'd move is gaining control of the foot. And a lot of times we deal with so many issues between that, and it sounds like you've had very similar experiences with the running population.
Well, realistically, if you look at it, running is a sagittal plane dominant sport. Powerlifting is a sagittal plane dominant sport between squat and deadlift. So you're gonna have many of these same overuse syndromes, if you will, from the TL junction to the lumbar spine. They're just going to be a little bit different. Running is going to be way more on the overuse side. Powerlifting, you have more of the potential for the bad stuff. But,
Yeah, but it's still the same thing. I mean, when do injury mechanisms happen? Well, I mean, it doesn't. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's fatigue, but maybe it happened under a heavy load. But it's their training plan had caused too much accumulation over the last few months, and now they're in a weakened state.
Exactly.
And, I mean, it's the same thing. It looks different because I've got 800 pounds on my back.
Right. No, it's exactly the same. It actually doesn't matter if you're an 800-pound deadlifter or a sub 4-minute miler, you're probably going to have the same pain syndromes, you're going to have the same pain patterns, and I would ultimately address it the same way. So it doesn't matter how much weight you can put on your back. It relatively looks the same.
Absolutely. And I know you've dealt with, there's a number of our lab athletes that have gone to you for issues and have pretty good success. I remember last year when I was prepping for a big squat at the time, maybe world record squat that I didn't get, but I'll blame it on you, Justin.
It's my fault. I'll own it.
But I was getting some really fiery pain on the inside of my leg, on my quad, right before the knee, and literally you had me fixed in a couple minutes using some approaches different, although we've now incorporated like some of those approaches in some of our tools where we're trying to deal with some of this like peripheral nerve sensitization. But you tell us a little bit about your experiences there
with the peripheral nerve sensitization?
Yeah, maybe.
Sure. Well, example with your knee, it would be the same thing, the same way I'd approach a runner's knee. Are you wanting me to go into the peripheral?
Well, I was gonna say I'm leaving this as an opportunity for you if you want to lay out the goods, Justin. It could be a good time.
So this will be the first time that this has been discussed.
All right.
On social media, except for just little jokes here and there. But essentially, over the last year and a half, based on some of basically Philip Snell and I nerding out in the office. So to give you an idea of our office, Philip Snell and I share an office, and our backs are about 3 feet from each other. So we're always like comparing cases and being like, "What do you think of this? What do you think of this?" We just go back and forth.
Were you guys talking about me last week? I was kind of feeling that.
We might have been. Maybe so. I don't remember actually. But essentially through that, we've both been exposed to Michael Shacklock's work, who's out of Australia, who's one of the leading researchers in neurodynamics, and David Butler and Diane Jacobs of dermal neuromodulation, and we've been just playing with those. Both of us have been playing those for the last couple of years. And through that experimenting, we kind of thought, well, Snell had always taught me with low back pain, particularly extension related, so more when you're leaning backwards, that the cluneal nerves are very much involved, and one of our common treatment approaches was basically just to skin roll the back. It's amazing, the most chronic low back pain patients, you come in and you just skin roll them, and then they're better, and you're kind of like, that was easy.
Why did that happen?
Yeah, 10 doctors later, I skin rolled you. So through that, we started thinking of the different mechanisms, and obviously superficial neurology was one of them. And I mean, skin rolling's been around for thousands of years, and this is nothing new. But we started thinking about why that works for one, and why it works in very specific locations. So we got the idea of basically having somebody go through a movement and pulling on the skin in very specific places, and watching how pain would alter. For example, let's go back to the cluneal nerves, which there's a lot of groups in Japan studying these, which are very interesting. We could attach in the show notes or something. And we discussed that in the Jet Set podcast 2 weekends ago at Shacklock's course. But essentially, we just had the idea, well, if you pull on the skin, if they have pain, and when they're leaning over backwards, and they have pain, and then you pull on the skin at the TL, where the nerves we know are superficial to the skin, and not hard, you just give it a little tug, and then they increase 20 degrees in range of motion, and their pain goes away. That was kind of like the aha moment. And essentially, we have extrapolated that to the entire body. And I've been working very diligently, very hard over the last year and a half, mapping out the entire body. And we're ready to share it.
Awesome. We've had experiences of learning some of this from you on the side, knowing it's kind of on the down low, and playing with some of the stuff that you're talking about. And it's really, when it's the case, it's pretty incredible. I mean, there's no, it was funny. A couple weeks ago, we started selling cups for kind of doing the same thing, and we have all these people. Oh my God, that's not science. There was like people unfollowing me, and I'm like, no, this stuff is really. Is it going to fix every back pain patient?
No.
Hell no. Hell no. But for very specific things, when it is the issue, it's pretty instantaneous.
And let's talk about whether or not if we're making the hypothesis that it is truly a mechanical sensitivity of a nerve, because a nerve doesn't have to be compressed or something to be pissed off, and I mean, it could just be mechanically sensitive to stretch. If that's truly the issue, the treatment's not done just because you put a cup or your hand on their back. You got to figure out why. So, for example, with the cluneal nerves that we were just talking about, if I can pull on somebody's skin roughly around the TL, and it reduces their pain, what do you automatically assume about their squat patterning? They're probably overarching their back, which Robert Main syndrome, which is what cluneal nerve neuralgia is, which is facet syndrome of the TL junction. They go in and inject the facets, and lo and behold, extension-related back pain disappears. So there may not be any direct science evidence for pulling on the skin, but there is definitely indirect evidence that we can use to piece together the pattern, if you will.
Yep.
So you've been mapping out the body.
Yes.
And have you developed a hypothesis as to why it may work?
Yeah. So there's a lot. We're going to go to fascia, but let's ferret out. There's some common misconceptions in what I'm probably going to be talking about, so I'm just going to lay them out now. If I say fascia, people are going to be like, "Oh, fascia doesn't change because it's dense and it takes 400 pounds or whatever force to the IT band to depress it." I'm not necessarily talking about the deep fascia that envelopes the muscles. I'm talking more about the superficial fascia. So if you have one layer of deep fascia, you have fat, you have a line that's superficial fascia, which there's multiple layers depending on what area of the body you're talking about, and then you have another layer of fat, and then you have the skin. Well, in that superficial fascia layer lives nerves. It's how we feel things. So now let's talk about superficial fascia. It's highly elastic, so it moves. So that's how your skin can do this. If you couldn't, you'd raise your arm and you'd rip the skin on the bottom of your arm or something. So it's very mobile, and it's more mobile than the nerve. So you can basically mobilize the nerve by pulling on the skin, which is that's kind of the hypothesis, because the slump test that we use, which is just slouch down, bring out your leg, and it creates back pain, and then you lift your head and it makes it better. We know that one end of the string of the nervous system is connected to the other, and Michael Shacklock's done a very good job of showing that via MRI studies. So why would that not apply to smaller nerves in the skin? It follows relatively the same idea. It just there hasn't been as much research devoted to that area yet. So we're working without a parachute here. We don't know. But when results are as substantial as we've been getting, it's unethical not to share at this point.
Yeah, I would agree so. But like you said, it's not really dealing with like the underlying issue.
No.
Although it could be. I mean, the injury could have been a while ago and resolved, right?
Well,
and maybe they just needed, that.
Well, it could be the issue in some cases. Like I saw one patient one time that had a burn that was a couple years old, and they had some pain distal to it, and I just mobilized the burn scar and it was gone. So that, in that case, technically, it probably was the issue. But most of this, I'm a functional based guy. I'm still looking at movement. I'm still looking for reasons why these peripheral nerves may be sensitized. So if I can take somebody's pain away by pulling on their skin, I'm looking where that nerve originates from the spine and looking at how they control themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a fundamental, like we said, I love R2P. I love anything that like has a similar methodology or approach, thought process to what we found works. And that's where we always drive back to. We always, we sell products for helping treat, the peripheral fascia, for doing work on the muscles, although we can get into that, not actually doing any physical change to anything, but more nerve related. But anyway, we always drive back. That's what we consider like triage treatment. Like we got to do that right now to get you like out of pain, or so that you've got full range of movement. But we've got to drive to what's causing that in the round. Like how are you moving? If we move correctly to begin with, you shouldn't be. If you move correctly within your, fatigue envelope, you're not going to run into problems.
For sure. So, and that's part of the reason why I like to use this sort of system more, is because I can use that taking away the pain, the pain modulation, if you will, regardless of the mechanism, to then show the patient how they're moving and then show them a picture in a book so they can see visually how what I did is connected to the part of their spine that the exercise that we did, say it'd be DNS camp, also took away their pain. And now I'm linking several variables together, all pointing to the same thing, so I get patient buy-in, and then also it takes away the threat. So there's going to be some people who criticize saying that I'm structuralizing this a little bit, but I actually look at it a little differently, because if you come in and you have shoulder pain and you're legitimately worried about a labral tear, and you've been to your PCP and told you need surgery, and I pull on your skin and it takes away the pain, I've just reconceptualized your thought of that threat. It takes it from my labrum's tore, I'm broken, to I have a paper cut. A paper cut hurts like hell, but it heals.
Right.
So that's how I explain it. It's a equal to a paper cut.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think about that in like getting the your patient buy-in, because we've got like a lot of people we deal with. They come to train with us or work with us, and because we have the validity in our field, so we don't really have to convince this person that's coming in that has no background with us going.
Right, and I probably, from my bias, I'm 28 years old. I got to prove myself every day. I got about a 10-minute window where I got to wow them, or I'm going to lose them because I don't have gray hair and balding and the age of wisdom look on me, that sort of thing. And patients kind of several times in practice I've got laughed at because I have a baby face. I mean, I'm rocking a beard right now. But
Between Chris and I, we've got gray hair and balding down pretty well.
I'm not saying you have to have that, but that's kind of the way I always try to prove things to a patient, so it doesn't look like I'm never asking them to trust me, because if I'm asking them to trust me without showing them the result, that I may lose them as a client, not be able to help them.
Before you ever get to show them the result.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then it's bad for business, it's bad for them, it's bad for everybody.
Yeah. It was about, it's only maybe 8 or 9 months ago, it seems like it was a long time ago, that we were kind of formally introduced to the body tempering by Donnie Thompson. He was here like in February. And as a result of him being here for that weekend, we began to develop some of those products. The boomstick was the primary one. And like I said, it's only been, can you believe it's only been like 8 or 9 months ago? It seems like we've been selling the boomstick and been utilizing its benefits for a long time.
Because people are talking about it all the time. That's why it seems so long.
So Brady has kind of developed some skills with the boomstick and worked on a number of us that are a bit broken or injured, and been able to really work with increasing range of motion and stuff. But Brady, I know that it's exciting for you to be involved with that. But I was going to ask you, Justin, what why does that work? Why does body tempering seem to help?
We're talking about using the boomstick and the extreme compressive forces.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
and
so we're talking the same language here.
Yeah,
Right.
so we're using like a lot of the primary way that we're using the boomstick and pain pill is for that pinpoint where we've got the 2-inch or 3-inch radius, and we're going in and targeting some specific tissue or trigger points. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have them move through a range of motion, some active mobilization. Maybe like 3 or 4 repetitions, that really quick. So we're not doing a lot of the big heavy weight just for a long period of time stuff anymore.
So I'm going to be real honest. I can't tell you that I know the exact mechanism. I can make some speculations. That's a little bit more on the extreme side than anything that's probably ever been researched, which is straight up along the lines of what I just talked about, right?
Yeah.
So I can make speculations, but I mean, there's always the tissue perfusion idea. You're basically just squeezing blood out and just letting it flow back in, which is going to bring in new cells, macrophages and stuff, to promote the healing process. You're creating a pro-inflammatory event, which is going to inflammation's good sometimes to help you heal. There's also the more the afferent input, just stimulating the brain maximally to a specific area, so that your brain is more aware of that specific area. The reason why I go about that is one of the things that shocked me when I read the sensitive nervous system, and I can't remember the exact study, but essentially, like people with chronic low back pain, like we're talking 15, 20 years of chronic low back pain, a little Snapple clicker?
Mm-hmm.
You click, 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 click. They click, 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 click around the back, and then they get to the spot of no pain, and they couldn't hear it. So that's sensory neglect. Your body is like, hey, I don't know what's going on there. I'm gonna try to ignore it. So, I mean, that's an extreme version. But if we take that to what you're doing, you're basically supercharging information to the brain to a very specific location.
Yeah, and the results, I mean, are just like, we did his shoulder at a KMS seminar. We kind of saved it because he's just had shoulder surgery on one and he's getting ready to do the other. And literally, your arm was here. We've got it on video. We filmed it. And in 5 minutes, Brady worked on him, and he's here.
That's
like, I mean, physically, you could push his arm and it would not raise
like
over
a
this. And
40
then
degree
internal
increase
and
in
external
range of motion.
rotation, I don't remember how much that improved. Brady, do you remember?
Not a lot of that seminar, but you had done stuff on him once.
Yeah.
And you saw at least 20 or 30 degrees of improvement.
And this is less than 5 minutes.
So I've felt Rudy's shoulders before, and for the docs that are listening to us, there was a very, very hard end feel. So,
Yeah, no, you push and you're getting bony infield,
Yeah.
and it's like it's right here, and we did 5 minutes worth of work, and he was here.
So I can't explain that. I
But
can make
it's repeatable every single time we encounter it.
That's the key is it's going to be repeatable, especially with this. We never even talked about the name of what I call the superficial.
Yeah. Come on, we're putting it out there.
Okay.
This is probably going to be in the title here.
Right. So I'm kind of a funny guy, right? I don't take life too seriously. When I like to learn, I like to keep things fun, and usually one of my favorite part of seminars is getting a beer with the instructor afterwards and hear what he really thinks.
This is maybe why you've gotten the vast bit of knowledge you have.
Yeah.
That
Right.
approach.
Well, that too. Let's talk the business model of seminars sometimes. It's oftentimes, and it's really bad in pretty much anything out there, that people believe when they teach a seminar and they have a specific treatment technique approach, although I'm not knocking on the approach, but they teach it as it's the only way to do things, which is BS, essentially.
Yes.
I'll be very...
There's a lot of ways.
I'll tone down my language here for Kabuki. But essentially, I've taken about 1,000 hours of continuing education in the last 4 years, and it's amazing to me the amount of people that just think their shit don't stink, and that this is the way for every single thing, every single presentation, and they sell it as such. So we'll call it being dogmatic. I didn't want to put out a new system out there and allow people to be dogmatic about it, because that's not the way I am about it. I use it as a tool. Just like when you're working on a car, it's a tool that has a specific purpose, and if it's not the right tool for the job, you get a different tool. So I called it a funny name. I called it YAP, which is the 3-letter acronym. You need a 3-letter acronym if you're going to sell stuff. It's sexy.
Don't know what you're talking about, KMS.
Right. And I'm making fun of myself right now, too. But the name of the technique is yank away pain.
Yeah, that's good.
It's descriptive, it's catchy, and it describes it, and it's kind of so one of the things that I want to get is I want to get t-shirts with this skinny stick figure guy and be like, do you even yap, bro? With like these hands. So it's just to keep it fun. Yeah, Snell was not down with it at first, but he grew to love it.
I was going to say, he seems pretty decent with it these days. So.
Oh, yeah. At first, he's like, I'm not calling it that. It was just a joke in the office. At first, this all started out as a joke in the office, and then it grew. So the name stuck. One of the one of the treatment techniques that I use in part of the system is called stage 2 tugging. There's no stage 1. There's no stage 3. If you get a beer in me afterwards, I'll tell you about stage 1 and stage 3. But it's just stage 2. Why? I don't know why.
Because you got promoted. We went from 0 to stage 2. You just skipped right over stage 1.
People listen to this. This is the first basically release of this to the public, talking about it.
Yeah.
But you're planning on educating practitioners and potentially general public, or
pretty much. So I'm writing a book right now, mainly an ebook that I'll give away for free. Just education. That will be geared more towards the practitioner side of things. And then Snell and I next weekend are filming a webinar, which is basically just showing how to do it and where, and it'll be fun.
Basically, your mapped process of the entire body, right?
And
This is how we go about it.
exactly. And what am I trying to say here?
So if you look at your Yap T-shirt in the mirror, it says pay, but you're not going to have people pay. You're going to give this information
Well, I'm
away
going to give
for
the
free.
ebook away for free,
Yeah.
and then if you want to see how to do it in the very specific locations, we're going to sell a webinar, and it's going to be a cheap one. I mean, it's going to be like $50 for the entire body, which is cheap, right?
All right. So people that are listening to this via audio only, I think at the end of the show here, we're going to demonstrate one of it, and you'll be able to see it on the video version of this on our YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
So that one will be free, but
Right.
the entire mapped content will be on the...
Right, and we have a website. You can sign up for the newsletter at yankawaypain.com, and we have a whole bunch of case studies on a closed group on Facebook called Yap, so you can search for it, and I'll add you to the group, and you can kind of see what it's all about. We actually have if you look through the names of people on the list of people in the group, there's some pretty smart people in
All
there.
right. So for those, again, listening, if you're listening to the podcast, you won't have the link. But if you go to our kabukistrength.com, you'll see Justin on there. You'll see our podcast. And we'll provide the links to all of this as well there as well. So make sure we get that out there for you, Justin. I really do love what you're doing here. And it's, you're kind of a little quiet and soft-spoken about it. But, this is really cool stuff. And nobody else is exploring this stuff just yet. Like you said, skin rolling's been around for thousands of years, but you're taking a very specific approach to this.
Right.
And
It's basically adding this. It's basically skin rolling with movement. You're just pulling on the skin. Well, in the video demonstration, it'll be super obvious what I'm even talking about.
Which is so that's exactly what we're doing with our tempering stuff too, is we do that pinpoint and the movement. Very common approach as well.
So it's the exact same thing, only you're pushing really hard.
We're going into the deep muscle and you're going into the...
Yes. And then the idea is I'm targeting superficial structures where I don't know what you're targeting, probably deeper stuff, like, maybe the bone.
Maybe. Well, it's how you improve bone density, right? I mean, just...
if you did it progressively, yes, probably. You just got to stay within that envelope, right?
But one thing, I have to give you credit for is the knurling that we have on both the pain pill and the boomstick is because of the work that we've done with you over the last couple years.
Oh, really?
So that was very specific to put that on there so that people could use that to generate the skin rolling with that, if they know where and how to do that. So we have that knurling done in a lighter fashion. It's not like this knurl on a shoulder rock or a bar, where you can go directly on the skin and pull the tissue each direction.
Oh,
and,
cool.
So that's how we've been using that product.
Yeah, and there's many ways of doing it. I'm not saying the way that I'm going to show is the only way. I should probably go into how I picked the points. I didn't just randomly pick points. I actually went into nerve block studies. So if you want to learn something, oftentimes you go to other fields, and that's universal with any business or whatever. You don't learn from the people that are doing the exact same thing you are. You learn from people that are doing different stuff and apply it to what you're doing, right?
So you went to anesthesiology, or?
I did.
Which is exactly, so somebody would have to have the knowledge with our product of where and how to use that.
Right.
Because
Right.
we don't have that, but we've got a tool inspired off of
Well,
our interaction with you.
So it's good. So I mean, that's where. So I use the nerve block studies on where they inject needles around the nerve to kill pain distally, because they choose places where the nerves are the most superficial to the skin because they're easier to get to. So I mean, if you can kill a pain via instructing a very specific place around a nerve, and it kills a very specific pain pattern, you kind of have a cause and effect relationship there. Or if it only takes away part of it and not the full, then you start looking other places. So that's where I got started. So those are the points that are the high payoff money points, if you will. And then there's many, many more that I've discovered just knowing anatomy and looking through Carla Stecco's fascial anatomy, and I mean, just like 15 anatomy texts kind of thing.
Well, I greatly appreciate you making sure you're calling out all the people that have sent you basically down the path and where you're pulling information from.
Right.
Over the course of this podcast. So.
Yeah,
Which-
no, I'm all about giving credit to where credit's due, because it's not like I just pulled this out of my butt, you know.
None of us are smart enough to come up with those things that
Right.
It's especially in the industry we work in. I mean, it's pulling from a lot of different areas that, it's there, and it's just a matter of connecting the dots,
Yep.
and that's already out there.
Which is not always easy to do.
No,
to
it's
take
not.
all that
It's
information,
not.
assimilate it, boil it down, and really, regurgitate it back in a way that everybody can understand.
Right, yeah, you don't know anything unless you can teach it to a 7-year-old, right?
Right.
Essentially. So, yeah.
I have a 7-year-old. You can't teach them anything. They already know everything.
Fair enough.
In that same vein, you talked a lot about all your continuing education and the vastness of toolbox. Anytime I've had treatment with you, it's been a variety of different modalities that you've tried to use. So aside from manual therapy and the yank away pain, what other sorts of things do you find that you frequently draw from in your treatment strategies?
Oh man, there's so many. Like, let's see. Most of you guys have seen Sneller. We've already talked about that, so I'm not violating HIPAA. You guys said it, not me. But essentially, if you come into a visit with me, I'm never going to use one treatment technique, hardly ever. But I draw a lot from the DNS camp from Prague. I draw a lot from Craig Liebenson. I draw a lot from Philip Snow, who's one of my biggest mentors. Let's see, Mulligan, there's neurodynamics, there's the pain science, there's Diane Jacobs, the list goes on and on.
I think that's part of what helps you be as effective as you are as a clinician, is that you have that variety of things to work with.
Right, and that's the way I teach the clinical audit process. I teach basically the high payoffs from all those different systems, sort of, with results being the only thing that matter. So if you didn't get a result, you switch to the next thing really quickly, and it almost looks like freestyling it. The way I explain it is, why was Michael Jordan so good at basketball? Because he could adjust on the fly better than anybody else.
Yeah, and that very much gets away from being dogmatic about one process, like you talked
Right,
about earlier.
right, and it takes away your bias, because the only thing you're trying to do is get a result,
Yeah.
and it makes it fun.
Yeah.
Versus like this, I have to do this, and then I have to do this, and I have to do this. Oh shit, I forgot that.
Yep.
Justin, for our listeners, walk us through the clinical audit process. What is that you're doing there?
Essentially, all it is, and as we discussed earlier, the clinical audit process, is the way I look at it, is you have a movement that bothers somebody, or it can be painful or non-painful, and you apply some sort of intervention, which could be virtually anything, and then you retest the first movement that was bothersome, and whatever that be. Maybe you can't get your shoulder in a back squat into the proper position so that you can load properly. Yeah, you know about that, right?
I know all about that.
So it doesn't have to be related to pain, although pain is my focus, because I'm on the clinical side of things, but it works just as, I see people without pain all the time as well. So that in a nutshell is exactly what it is. It's assess, do something, reassess.
So assess, correct, assess. Yeah. Good.
It's the same thing. It's nothing new, and I should really mention that I'm not the one that even thought of it. I learned it from Craig Liebenson and Gray Cook, and the course that I'm teaching is just an extension of Craig Liebenson. So this is I just put my own little spin and flavor on it.
Nice. We are going to have Craig Liebenson on this podcast here coming up in the next few months as well. So,
Oh, great. He's
yeah,
great. Pick his brain. He's super smart.
We will be doing that.
Yeah, I do all the time.
Go drinking with him afterwards.
You should. That man has more energy than anybody I've ever seen. I remember at his course when he was here in Portland, it was like 4 a.m, and he's like ordering another drink. And we're like, Craig, you got to teach in like 5 hours. I'm tired, man.
and I'm 28.
I think I was 26 at that time.
I'll have to remember that. I'm speaking with him at Exos Altus here,
Right.
coming up in a little over a month. So.
I'll be there if I'm not in China.
Excellent. All right.
I already bought a plane ticket. So I'll be there. I'm teaching with Craig actually in 2 weeks at the University of Western States Symposium.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
I was supposed to do that, except I think Craig was a little upset because he asked me like a year ago, but I had the dates mixed up and kind of screwed up and double booked with Smith Symposium in Toronto. So.
Well, that happens when you travel as much as I do. I bought last month. I bought a plane ticket on the wrong weekend, and had to cancel 6 hours later. And I was like, crap. Wrong weekend.
Need a travel planner. That's what you need.
Yeah.
Or you need to be MVP gold. That way you can change stuff without
almost-
without a cost there.
I'm almost there. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I must be traveling more than you. I've already got it.
Well, I didn't start doing that until like 6 months ago.
Oh.
I always went for the cheapest flight versus just sticking with one. Stupid. Yeah, what are you doing?
Brady, do you have any other questions you wanted to ask Justin? I know you've been working on this a lot, but anything cross your mind while you're actually working with the pain pill and the boomstick that you'd want to ask a clinician?
I want to ask the specific ways that you use manual therapy, specifically, or in which way you use something like the boomstick.
I'd have to play with the boomstick to give you a better answer with that.
Let's
but
say
it-
manual therapy broadly. Then.
Well,
Any sort of instrument.
with manual therapy broadly, the way I'm all about self-empowerment, so teaching a patient how to fix themselves
Yep.
via movement. So something something in the office via the clinical audit process that takes away their pain, that they can go home and do it. And my threshold, 50 to 70% reduction of pain. You get that kind of results, people listen, they
Yeah.
pay attention, and they're motivated to do their exercises at home. So there's really no
Hounding them every week.
no, there's really no need to create motivation because they have the cause and effect
Yep.
in the office. So when I strike out on the active care for whatever reason, I'll go to my passive care
Yep.
to create a catalyst so that I can then use my active care again to do the same thing. So that's how I use my manual therapy. Or sometimes when everything else fails, I go to manual therapy.
Yeah.
No, I think that's an important note, that empowering people,
Mhm.
and that's something I definitely learned. I think from Snell quite a bit, especially in dealing with people with back issues and stuff like that. Just the power of you can do a lot of different stuff, but if you give them the tools, they can do themselves
Mhm.
instead of saying, "I need you to come see me twice a week, every week," and that's like with the products we sell. Even though it may sometimes require help in our audience, a lot of our audience, they're with somebody that can help them. So it is like a self-help tool if they're not able to work themselves on some stuff.
And there's absolutely nothing
But-
wrong with passive care at all. It's just if I magically do
but-
something with my hands, they attribute the success to these guys
Yeah.
rather than to themselves, and I'm just recreating the problem.
Exactly. No, I think that's really important. A lot of people kind of miss that sometimes, the ability to give people takeaways that they can go manage this stuff and do it themselves. And you see this all the time. I think I wrote an article about this at being at a dinner party with non-athletes, and they're like, "Oh, well, I used to do that till my knee did this or my back did this or this, and then it's just it's these excuses, and there's no this is what I did to overcome it. This is what I can do. This is how I it's a mind shift that you're an athlete in the background. You've got the same approach and some people, not everybody has that, and so you've got to actually teach them.
Right, and one of the
You've got to teach them that because they don't naturally have that well, I have to go somewhere and have them fix it for me.
right, and that's a mindset shift. And part of one of the biggest criticisms why some chiropractors don't do rehab is because it takes too long, and patient compliance rate sucks and whatever. But I mean, if you do it the way that I described before, and you show them and you provide the motivation, compliance is around 90%, and then they're better in 2 or 3 visits versus 20 or 30. So, and if they don't do it, they actually come in and be like, I know I should have done it, but I didn't, and I was lazy. And I know they really help. And then they do it again in the office, and it takes away their pain again, and they have the reinforcement of the message.
Yep. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of hammer that away. I mean,
Oh,
I think a lot of our audience gets it naturally, but they don't quite understand that not everybody's the same as them.
Right.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that'll definitely be a difference in dealing with your standard population, which we don't have a lot of exposure to ourselves here. So. We
Right.
live in our little world.
Right, and I'm all over the place. I see everything from chronic pain patients, the worst of the worst, to you guys, or like the Olympic silver medalist in 5K, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I get a nice little flavor of different stuff.
I'm sure that helps keep things
So
interesting for you.
what's the most gratifying part of your profession right now? What really winds your watch?
The most satisfying thing for me is just giving people their lives back, honestly. The standard example is you got a brand new mother. She really cares about caring for her child, but she has no idea how to pick up her child without causing back pain. And it's gratifying to be able to help them be able to take care of something that's extremely important for them, which is taking care of their child. And they don't have to hire help or that sort of thing. So I would say that's one example that that really is what I enjoy. I enjoy athletes helping them reach their goals, and everything in between. It's just, what is it that somebody wants to do, and how can I help them do it? So that's what grinds me. That's what gets me going. That's why I do what I do. So I'll never get out of clinical practice. Like, I'll be in here 5 days a week for forever, kind of thing.
And you're heading right back to the office after this, right? We're glad
yeah.
to actually have you in person. Normally
Yeah.
we do. But you're like, gotta go at this time, Duffin, just so you know.
I got a patient
You gotta
at 5.
be on time.
So
I got work to do. I got
Right.
people to help.
Right.
Well, do we maybe want to take a break here if this is a good time and go yap around a little bit out in the gym?
Yeah, we can do that.
Let's yap.
Yeah.
Let's yap attack it.
All right.
Great.
So-
Well, we'll pause here now, and then we'll go out and do some yapping, and we'll tag that on to our YouTube. And want to thank you for participating with us here at Strength Chat today.
Yeah, definitely.
And I promised Philip that I would send a boomstick back with you today, so take that.
I'm gonna go play with some boom.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Dr. Justin Dean, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. All right, I'm Dr. Justin Dean, and this is a demonstration of yank away pain, or for the cool kids, YAP. All right, so we're going to talk about the saphenous nerve, and we're going to go from the knee down. So essentially, if we have Brady here, and let's pretend, you don't have any knee pain, right? No. Let's pretend he has pain anywhere in this area of the knee. And we know from nerve block studies that right here we can inject the saphenous nerve and decrease pain anywhere in the distribution down the medial inside of the leg down into the ankle. So if he has pain with squatting, and of course we're going to look at everything functional, but from a passive care standpoint here, go ahead and do a squat. Let's say he has pain here with squatting, okay? Let's just say pain in the front of the knee, right on the inside. Right about yonder. Go ahead and stand up. What you can do, can you just roll your pant leg just a little bit? You can get in here, and I'm going from the back side, and just create space where that nerve lives. Squat again. And I have my hands in the way. Come back up. Do it again so I can get out of your way here. And if that takes away his pain, then we may be more suspicious of the saphenous nerve mechanical sensitivity, if you will. And if we grab the skin and kind of assess, and if it's tender on this side and not on this side, then we have an asymmetry, which makes it a little bit more significant. And then if we notice that he does a single leg squat, or he has poor control of the knee or the hip, that would load this structure potentially more, and he's training beyond his capacity, then it makes sense that this nerve potentially, as well as tendons and all the other anatomy in here, can get irritated. And this is the way we propose one method to treat it. Down you go. So we can do it with movement, which is yank away pain. And we just do various reps. And this causes a little bit of pain. That's okay. Partially because I'm pulling on his hair a little bit. How does this feel?
Not great.
Not great. And that's very normal. We are pulling on irritated superficial nerves that live in the skin. And the saphenous nerve indeed supplies the skin over the knee, and it directly pierces the MCL and the infrapatellar retinaculum and everything in here. And it goes all the way down here. So anyway, and we could also use this same approach for shin splints or pain on the inside of the ankle. Sometimes people come in saying, hey, I got plantar fasciitis. This may be one option. Okay? That is the demonstration of the saphenous nerve with yank away pain. So if you want to learn more, go to yankawaypain.com. Subscribe to our newsletter. We are currently in the process of making a webinar that is mapping out the entire body.